Hey buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis Kilvin is the name, and Heroes of the Storm is the game, and these are my first impressions, my first look at the brand new hero, Zarya. She just hit the public test realm, so I'm taking my very first look. Of course, Zarya is from Blizzard's game Overwatch, the second Overwatch hero to be added to Heroes of the Storm, and she is classified as a ranged warrior, which so far I think we only have one other ranged warrior in the game, which is Rexar. He doesn't really play like a solo tank. I'm curious if Zarya has the potential to be a solo tank ranged warrior, because that really is a different mechanic and playstyle and sets up different team compositions and really a different strategy about how you approach team fights and objectives. And that I think a ranged tank can hole up better defensively. It's less of a get in your face and dive the back line and cause chaos style tank, and more of a sit back, poke away, set up defensive position style tank. So I think that's a healthy thing for the game to have, and could add a neat spin if Zarya's good. But of course, I don't know Zarya's kit at all. This is literally the first time I'm seeing the hero. This is truly a first impressions video. So if you'll join me, I think we'll learn a little bit about her abilities and her talents, and maybe just how good Zarya has the potential to be. So starting off, let's look at the top level stuff, which would be Zarya's health. And it's not the highest health total ever for a tank. It's actually a little bit squishy for a tank. You definitely want to see above 5,000 at level 20 or even higher. So that probably is a result of her being ranged. You don't want to give the ranged tank, who already has a natural advantage, a ton of health either. And let's actually just go ahead and see her ranged attack in action here. I mean, it's ranged. Yeah, it works. It's actually channeled, but yeah, it actually is channeled. So you're better standing still than stutter stepping, right? Like, stutter stepping is definitely going to cut down on your attack. But I presume if you're hitting a moving target, and we can actually see this with the enemy hero. If you're hitting a moving target who's moving, I think you probably just stand still and they will they'll move. Oh, but it's actually the full line does do damage. Wow, it's kind of ridiculously cool. So your auto attack is always hitting a ton of people. That seems very powerful. And yeah, she does stand still. So a different auto attack mechanic than most heroes, less about stutter stepping, more about positioning and angles. So setting up the primary target of your focus has a big impact on everybody that's hit in between. So a lot to balance there. So see, like right now, hitting Arthas, I'm missing all the minions, but I'm only hitting 3 minions now, but I'm also hitting 4 minions by targeting this guy. So some pretty interesting applications there, but she's just not going to be good at chasing, right? Like, trying to chase and stutter step means she's going to lose most of her auto attacks damage. So again, it feels like a tank who's better at like holding a position, holding up defensively and pushing away the enemy team, and holding an objective as opposed to capturing an objective. So let's see. Let's go ahead and look at her trait next. I think that's going to be important, since it does seem to be her mana bar, basically. And that is energy, and this is apparently quite similar to her mechanic in Overwatch, in that each time Zarya's personal barrier or shield ally, and I think those are her W and E from the looks of things, absorb 22 damage. It's a very specific number. Her energy is increased by 1. And each point of energy increases Zarya's damage by 2%. After a half a second, that energy then starts to decay by 3 energy per second. So there's a lot of numbers here to parse out. I'm not sure I'm going to be cognitively aware enough right now to make sense of these. But basically, when you use your W on yourself and you take hits, it's going to increase this bar over here, right? And I guess when you turn off cooldowns, you're just always at 100, which is pretty cool. And the higher this is, the higher your damage modifier goes. So just like in Overwatch, so if you're familiar with Overwatch, she operates the exact same way. But her shields do seem to last a little longer, at least. In my mind, the game's a little slower paced too, so it seems like you'll be able to absorb a lot of damage with these, right? When enemies are on you, this is going to work. It's you're gonna get some hits. And let's see, it takes 22 damage to gain 1 energy, which means to get to 100 energy, you'd have to multiply that by 100, which would be 2200 damage. And her W shields for 1200, so if they burn through this full shield, you would not get a full charge, right? You'd get roughly half, a little over half, it seems. We can probably see that in action here. We didn't let it decay far enough. Sorry guys, the cooldowns here have had some shenanigans. We'll check in on that later, maybe when we look at the W. But anyway, it's going to take a combination of both abilities to get a full charge, or, you know, just rolling abilities. These do have 12-second cooldowns, so, you know, that could decay 3 per second. It's only going to decay for 12 seconds in between any given one of these. You know, they don't have to both be casted at the same time, so there might be an average of like 6 seconds of decay in between these being activated, which is, you know, 18 energy decay, which is not a full bar. So, you know, it won't be going back to 0 most of the time, as long as you're active and looking for ways to protect yourself and your allies. You know, the bar might drop to 50 and then jump back up to 80, and then drop to 40 and then jump back up to 100, and then drop to 30 and then jump back up to 60. So it's less about trying to get a full bar probably, and more about just staying topped off and staying active as long as possible, and taking a little poke damage here and there in order to maximize that bar. And you do want it high, right? Because it's going to impact your damage really significantly. In fact, why don't we look at the difference between a fully charged beam and an undercharged beam? I think we were doing 44 before, and now we're doing 129. This is actually pumping out a ton of damage, because, you know, not only is it area of effect, it's hitting multiple targets, but it's a quick tick off here. It's a pretty substantial auto attack when you're fully charged. That's scary. If you're good at managing that, that's going to give you a ton of value. Although, again, her auto attack's going to be kind of hard to hit, even though she's ranged. You know, if you really want to get full value, you kind of have to stand still, it feels like. And that means people are running away and taking advantage of you positionally. So a big downside there. So it's going to be curious to see how easy this is to pull off in a real game. All that said, let's turn this off so she stops saying maximum charge over and over and over again. That's going to get old super duper fast. And let's take a look at her abilities. So starting off with her Q, it's Particle Grenade. Has 4 charges, it's a lot of charges, and an 8-second cooldown. And you launch a Particle Grenade that deals 136 damage to enemies within the area. Deals 50% damage to structures. So that's a really long range, which is cool. It's a really long range, especially for a tank. And it doesn't do a ton of damage though, right? Like, it's gonna do more obviously with your charge up. Let's see exactly how much. 407, still honestly not a ton of damage. And I guess it does not have a knockback. Thought it might have a knockback. That seems like it would give her some slight crowd control, you know, being able to move opponents around, but it appears it doesn't. So this is really just a poke ability and perhaps a finisher if somebody gets far away from you or runs away from your beam cannon. This does give you a way to hit them, and, you know, you're going to be able to poke enemy teams. This is a fairly large circle at a very long range. So, in fact, I think you can probably just spam structures. Yeah, easily. And that's likely why it does 50% damage to structures. They don't want you just spamming structures down for free. So that's actually pretty smart. But not the most impactful damage ability I've ever seen. 4 charges you can, you know, hit it 4 times really fast, or actually not that fast. There's sort of a global cooldown. So I mean, this is not a healthy playstyle, right? That's not going to work out very well. So up next is her W, Personal Barrier. 12-second cooldown on this one. Again, it's a self shield for 1228. It's a pretty big shield. It took her health to, you know, like 6k basically. And that's probably why her health total is not super high. It's understanding that you do have access to your own personal shield with a Moderate cooldown, I'd call it. It's not a short cooldown, but not the longest ever. So that's pretty powerful, because you can often control when you're taking damage, right? And there will be instances where you want to burn through your shield just to increase your energy. So like you might intentionally stand in that Nova nuke just to burn through that shield and get your energy up, right? So you do have a lot of granular control over your energy to some extent with W. With E, I think it's going to be a little less obvious. This is shield ally. Grants an ally here a shield that absorbs 921 damage for 3 seconds. So you can't always control when allies take damage, but this is really just a sort of a heal or a defensive ability. And it's a solid size shield. Again, 920 damage is certainly nothing to scoff at. So it does give Zarya almost like a support warrior, right? There are other tanks that have shields, but not quite this good and not quite this single target. So this feels, you know, like a little baby Tassadar shield. You got Tassadar built right into Zarya here, which is pretty cool. So this ability could be really powerful, right? It's not Medivh level in its ability to mitigate, but I think the duration's a fair bit longer, and the ease of use is going to be much better. Just because you got 3 seconds to make it count, and that's going to be fairly easy to hit. And, just see that in action there. It looks pretty cool. Okay, so that's nice. We don't know the heroics yet, so we'll wait till we get there in the talents to see what those look like. So let's move on to the talents, starting off with Demolition's Expert. For every 5 enemies hit by Particle Grenade, 5 enemy heroes hit by Particle Grenade, its recharge rate lowers by 0.25 seconds up to 2 seconds. And once Particle Grenade hits 40 enemy heroes, its radius is increased. I'm not going to go through that quest to see that, but I can tell you right now a radius increase of 15% is not going to be that significant. This is the radius right now, you know, it's not going to make a material difference on your ability to hit stuff. This is more than big enough. So that feels like a pretty weak reward. Honestly, the charge rate also feels sort of weak. I just don't like this ability. It doesn't seem impactful enough. Even fully maxed out, it's just, I don't know that it's doing enough. But 6-second charges, I mean, it helps, but again, I just don't think Q is enough to carry your weight. So let's move on. Together we are strong. Every 22 damage done by allies while under shield ally contributes 1 energy up to 25 energy per shield. Alright, that's not too bad. This gives you probably a more consistent way to generate energy, because, you know, sometimes you'll put the E, your opponents will see it, they won't hit the ally you put your E on, because they know the scoop, right? People are going to know how she works. To the extent that they can swap targets, they will. And that means you won't get a lot of energy back on your E. Your W, you'll probably be able to fine-tune control more often than the E. So this gives you some more consistent, reliable way to do it. So even if you're E-ing somebody and they don't take a lick of damage, you're still going to get some energy back, which is nice. And 25 energy is, I guess, a 50% damage buff too. So that's going to pay dividends quite quickly. Feel the Heart is next. Zarya's basic attacks deal 50% additional damage to enemies in melee range. That seems really bad. It's going to be hard to keep people in melee range. Stutter stepping seems awkward with this hero. And there's just 50% extra damage isn't enough. It just doesn't do enough. So really seemingly weak talent to me there. I don't really get that one. I do like passive effects like that because they're easy to pull off. You don't have to think about it, but that one just seems too weak. And then finally, maximum charge. Regen globes now instantly grant 20 energy. There's a quest. If you spend 120 seconds at or above 50 energy, I don't know if that means 120 seconds in a row or just total. Probably just total based on the writing. You gain an additional 25 maximum energy, so that's another 50% damage boost, right? I don't know though. The regen globes giving you energy is cool. I'll give you that, but the energy is not like a mana resource, right? It's you need it when stuff is going on. Like, you need the energy to be high in fights when it matters, not when you're killing a minion wave. So it's nice to get a little pump of energy every once in a while when you hit those regen globes, but I feel like this could be pretty low impact the rest of the time. So All that said, I think if you're looking for an energy build, Together We Are Strong makes the most sense to me. And if you're just looking for more consistent outputs, Demolition's Expert's okay. Doesn't feel good, but it's technically a raw increase in your ability to use your Q. So these two feel the best. These two seem rather average to me. Moving on to level 4. I Am the Strongest. Personal Barrier absorbs an additional 307 damage. I don't think you can go wrong there. That's like a 33% increase on this, or actually a 25% increase on this exactly. It's 300 extra health. I mean, it is what it is. It's no surprise, but you do have some control over it, which is nice. So that seems safe enough. There's also Give Me 20 Regeneration Globes increase. I hate how this says Regeneration Globes and this says Regen Globes. Like, is it that hard to be consistent? They're literally 1 tier apart. Anyway, they increase the shield ally absorb amount by 15 up to 300 permanently. I'm not sure I understand what that means. Shield ally absorb amount. Well, I see. Oh, I see. Each time you get a Regen Globe, this number goes up by 15, so it goes from 921 to 936. So eventually you get an extra 300 shield, which would take it up to 1200. And then after collecting 20 globes, you permanently reduce the cooldown of shield ally by 3 seconds. That actually seems okay. I mean, 20 Regen Globes is not hard to get. I mean, I shouldn't say not hard. It's not always easy, depending on the map. But back in the day when you were doing stuff like Regen Master and all those Regen collecting stuff, you'd see 25, 30 all the time. So that's definitely possible, particularly if you're keeping an eye out for it. And having a 9-second cooldown here could make a big difference on giving your team some extra health, not to mention it's shielding for an extra 300. So if you're putting in the work, this does actually feel quite good. It probably just depends on how much you're personally impacting the battle or counting on your teammates. So if you're in a good high skill group and you trust your teammates, this one might be better. If you feel like you're carrying, maybe I Am the Strongest is more reliable. There's also Speed Barrier. Shield ally increases allied hero's movement speed by 25% for the duration. You know, I wouldn't undervalue this or underestimate Speed Barrier. I actually like allied speed boosts a lot. I think it's powerful. It's really good to help people chase sometimes. It's also good to help them escape sometimes, as you might want to do with shield ally. So I don't know, in a high skill cap group, people who really know what they're doing and understand that you have speed barrier and understand how to take advantage of it, this could actually be really strong. I think on average though, you're going to be safer going with one of these two. So this is probably for the really high end games. The people understand how to utilize speed. There's also defensive shielding. Upon expiration or breaking, a personal barrier and shield ally reduce the damage of the next 2 hero basic attacks within 12 seconds by 75%. You know, that's not bad. It's basically a block, a 12-second duration block added on to the end. I don't hate it, right? It's depending on the comp, if they have a lot of strong auto attackers or divers and you're like trying to protect your Lieutenant Morales or whatever, and they've got Greymane and Thrall going ham or Butcher or whoever, this could be a good option to help save that ally. You know, this is going to mitigate more than 300 damage here, right? So plus it actually works on 2 abilities, so it theoretically gets twice the payout on yourself and on an ally. So this actually seems pretty good, unless there's just like a straight mage comp with no auto attacks. You wouldn't get much out of this, but anybody that's using strong auto attackers, this seems quite good actually. I like that a lot. And then moving on to level 7, pinpoint accuracy. Particle grenade deals 40% more damage to enemies hit by the center of the blast. Let's see, the center of the blast there. That's not even that small, honestly, right? Like, I think you could hit that pretty often. Remember, you're just trying to cross over anybody's hit circle, so you don't even have to be perfect, right? Like, that would have counted. So you've actually got a pretty big circle to hit here, right? Like, this is actually, the circle I'm making, if you see the inner circle, is actually how big your circle is to hit a target. So that's going to go off. The question is it good? And I don't really know that it is. 40% of a pretty weak ability doesn't hurt that much. Maybe I'm underestimating Q a little bit, just because it does have a lot of charges, but I don't know. I'd rather it do like 400 damage and have 2 charges, right? Like, it might be less total damage, or actually probably my math means it's still more damage, but I'd rather it hit harder less often, I think, than kind of poke away. But this is a poke style hero, so maybe it just fits the strategy of Zarya. Moving on to Explosive Barrier. Upon expiration or breaking, personal barrier explodes, dealing 219 damage to nearby enemies. I don't really like that. I think that's... It's going to go off, it's going to hit people, but it's not enough damage, again, to really make a substantial difference. And this is not even applied to Shield Ally. That would make it better. This apparently applies just to personal barrier. And remember, Zarya, you're not always going to be right in the middle of the stuff. You might want to step back, because you are technically sort of a ranged warrior. So there may not be a lot of enemies nearby. It's not like you're diving in and expecting to hit 5 people, like a Tyrael or something. So I don't like Explosive Barrier for this hero. There's also 2 the limit. While above 50 energy, your basic attack size is increased by 35%. Now, I think that means the beam is wider. But ooh, what did I did not mean to mount just now? Let's see. Let's reset talents, and let's turn on some minions and turn on cooldowns, and let's see what this looks like. Right, to the limit. Yeah, the beam looks wider, but is it? I don't think it's any longer range, right? I think it's just a little wider. It's just a little more likely to hit targets. I don't know. I don't really think it's that good, personally. It still seems... And that's only above 50 energy, right? So it's... The effect didn't seem that good, and it's only happening part of the time. Maximum charge, I can't deal with this. We gotta turn you off, sorry. Sorry, dude. So I don't really like this. It feels like you're gonna get very little payout. And then finally there's Hit Me. Damage absorbed by Zarya's shields. Contributes 20% more energy. So right now, right, it does 1 point of energy for each 22 damage. So I guess this would mean basically for each 15 damage it'd do 1 point of energy, something like that. Each, actually 17 damage probably. So your energy goes up a little faster, I guess. It might actually be the best option on this tier. Energy is going to give you a lot of rewards, it seems. Damage, but also perhaps synergy with other talents. So I think I actually like Hit Me here quite a bit. I mean, pinpoint accuracy is going to be reliable as well. It's extra damage. These are all basically extra damage talents, but I think Hit Me probably has the most side effects, positive side effects, and seems slightly more predictable. So let's go ahead and move on to Zarya's heroics or ultimates. These are Graviton Surge, 120-second cooldown. That's very long. 2 minutes. Launch a gravity bomb that detonates after 1 second and draws enemy heroes towards the center for 2.5 seconds. So this is exactly like Zarya's ultimate in Overwatch. Yeah, we can probably see this in action over here. Or not. I guess it's just it's just on enemy heroes, so we can't see that in action. It says very specifically, draws enemy heroes towards the center for 2.5 seconds. I was like, man, that has the longest activation time. That's terrible, but that's because I'm dumb. Yeah, so it works immediately. He is frozen there. That's really powerful, guys. I mean, don't underestimate this. The range is big enough. The circle is huge. And it's gonna set up just ridiculous combo potential, right? If you thought stuff like Devouring Maw or Mosh Pit set up combos, this is, or I should say Gazlow's bomb set up combos. This is like the better Gazlow ult, right? It's easier to hit because there's no delay. Oh my gosh, we gotta turn you off. Sorry, chill out. It's easier to hit because there's no delay. It just seems very, very good. And of course, she doesn't have the natural combo that Gazel has, where he can also stun. But still, this is just going to set up so much damage and so many crazy things. Very powerful ability. There's also the Expulsion Zone, and you can see here the difference, and the reason this is ever going to be considered is the cooldown. That's 45 seconds instead of 120. So it's a big difference. But this one launches a Gravity Bomb that deals 272 damage. Note, this doesn't actually do damage on its own, unlike in Overwatch. This is more about... Oh, actually, this says it's not instant. Hold up, I gotta see this in action. It actually... It is, but it takes a second to travel, basically, right? Like, it's instant once it travels there, but the 1 second delay is the travel time. So as long as you're hitting the skill shot, that's less of a delay and more of a skill shot, basically. But anyway, moving on to Expulsion Zone, let's reset these talents.
Choose a talent.
Grab some random stuff. Again, try Expulsion Zone. Looks like exact same graphic, but this is the opposite, right? You're keeping people out of an area instead of in it. And it lasts a little longer as well, 3.5 seconds, and it does damage, unlike this one, which doesn't do its own damage. And enemies who enter this thing are knocked back and have their movement speed reduced by 50%, which is a pretty significant slow. So normally I would say this is a really strong ability. Like, it seems good. It's just area denial, crowd control, has some damage impact, lasts a while. Just seems good. Could knock people back into your team if you're chasing. You could block them off from entering an objective. There's all kinds of utility you can imagine here. But unfortunately, Graviton Surge just seems so ridiculously good in an organized team that I don't see how you could pass this up. That said, if your team's not organized or doesn't have ways to take advantage of area of effect damage at all, they're just 4 auto attackers or something, maybe Expulsion Zone could be worth it, but I think it's going to be hard to pass up Graviton Surge in 99% of settings. So, let's move on to level 13. Up first is Unstoppable Competitor. Personal Barrier makes you unstoppable for up to 1.5 seconds. That's actually pretty important. Unstoppable effects are really strong. The fact that you can just basically barrel roll your way through anything, no chin, pun intended. It's good as a tank. Like, having that option is nice, and it's actually kind of sick because it's just on a 12-second cooldown. So that's it gives your W a secondary utility, right? You suddenly don't just need to cast W for shield. Sometimes you cast it specifically for the unstoppable effect, and that's really good. This is going to be hard to pass up, I think. There's also Spell Barrier. Upon expiration or breaking, Personal Barrier grants a spell shield that reduces ability damage taken by 75% for 3 seconds. So, you know, the typical answer to spell-based enemy compositions, to mages, essentially. That seems fine. But again, actually, this isn't quite as good because it's not just up. It only happens after your barrier expires. So that's a little weird. That's actually sort of awkward. So you know, you cast this, you get a ton of health. They burn through your shield with their spells. Then you get Spell Barrier, and they don't have spells left. They just wasted their cooldowns getting through your shield. So that's a little awkward. I don't know that I like that. Yeah, that feels weird. I don't think that's going to work well in practice. There's also Endurance Training. While at or above 75% or 75 energy, Zarya gains Resistant, reducing all damage taken by 25%. Resistance really strong. Just a straight 25% damage reduction. The question is, how good are you at maintaining energy? I don't really know yet. I haven't taken Zarya into a game. I don't know how hard it is. I guess if you got a lot of energy maintenance talents and were skilled at keeping your energy high, this could be very, very good in team fights, which is when your energy is most likely going to be high. So that's good, but I still don't know that it's better than Unstoppable Competitor, but an option. It's also Pain is temporary, 30-second active, 30-second cooldown active talent here. This allows you to activate to consume all energy and gain a shield that absorbs 0.5% of Zarya's maximum health per energy consumed. Math. It lasts for 3 seconds. Zarya may only have one personal shield active on herself at a time. So here, let's see. So you got 100 energy, you press this button, it steals your energy, and it gives you a shield that does 50% of her maximum health. So in this case, 2,400 health. That's a really big shield. But it only lasts for 3 seconds, which isn't the longest ever. So it's going to actually be hard for opponents to burn through 2,400 health in 3 seconds. This feels like a sort of last-ditch effort to stay alive. But I don't really like this. It doesn't work with your other shield, apparently. You can only have one at a time. It steals your resource, which makes you good in the first place, so you're not going to be an offensive threat when this happens. Just seems like a lot of drawbacks on this for an effect that's undeniably strong from a raw numbers standpoint, but maybe not that strong in an actual practical utility standpoint. So I definitely prefer Unstoppable Competitor and perhaps Endurance Training, but I think this is just cool. In high-level play, this is really good. If you're playing on lower tiers, perhaps Endurance Training could be more rewarding for you. So moving on to level 16, there's Plasma Shock. Particle Grenade slows movement speed by 35% for 1 second to enemies near the center. I like that. That's fine. It's, again, a sort of a poke spammable ability, so a slow on that is valuable. It gives it some crowd control impact. Makes it a little better, just more incentive to use it more often, which is pretty nice. That's a nice safe talent. There's also Cleansing Shield. Shielding an ally removes all disabling effects. Wow. So a tank with a cleanse. That's pretty cool, not gonna lie. That's pretty cool. I really like that. That's gonna be hard to pass up. Again, this is another, you know, the higher the level of play, the better this is going to be, but that's really good. If you like playing support and you like playing tank, it seems like Zarya is gonna merge the two really nicely. It's cool. She's a support hybrid tank. I like it a lot. That's a much higher impact than Plasma Shock, but low skill players may find it difficult to use or understand how to use it. So less of a safe choice, but a much better choice overall. There's also the Gain Train, which is an amazing name. Shield ally now grants an untalented shield to a nearby ally upon impact. So doubling the effect of E if you're clumped up. That's also really strong. This is, again, a safer choice than Cleansing Shield. Maybe not as high impact in key moments, but it's always going to be good. Or 90% of the time, it's going to be good. So that's another safe choice. I think I like this better than Plasma Shock, definitely. It's more defensively minded. This is sort of more offensively minded, not only because it's on an offensive damage-based ability, but I think this is best when you're like chasing people down as opposed to hold up in a position. Like slowing them down doesn't really matter if they're approaching you. It's more about if they're running from you when slows are most relevant. Finally, there's Born in Battle. While at or above 75 energy, sorry, its cooldowns regenerate 25% faster. So another 75 energy threshold thing. You know, cutting cooldowns down is good. Makes your shields 25% better, basically, as long as you're in situations where you can cast them that often. So this is probably based on the map a little bit and team compositions a little bit and just kind of the tendency to fight in any given game. So this is far and away less reliable than either of these options, or actually any of the three options. So inconsistent, unpredictable is not usually a good thing. I still like Cleansing Shield the best here, but that might be from my support playstyle mentality. It just seems really strong to me. But Gain Train is also very good, so these two seem like the clear choices. I'm actually going to take Cleansing Shield here. So let's move on to level 20. First is the upgrade to Graviton Surge, and that's called Gravity Kill. So this increases Graviton Surge duration by 1 second and causes it to deal 307 damage over the duration. So I mentioned there was no damage component to this. This does give it that damage and also makes it last for 1 second longer, which is a pretty big upgrade. That's like a 40% boost, which is quite a bit, and just sets up more potential combos. Opponents are locked down forever, so your team can go absolutely crazy. This feels good. Feels really nice. I mean, granted, you're only going to get to benefit from it every 2 minutes, which isn't great in the late game, because after level 20, you know, that might be twice in a long game. Maybe twice. So I don't know that it's high impact enough to make a huge difference post level 20, but you know, when it happens, it is going to make a difference. So that's good to know. So I like it fine. There's also Clear Out, the upgrade for Expulsion Zone. Forgot the name of that guy. This increases the radius by 15%, and Zarya's maximum energy temporarily increases by 10 per enemy hit for 10 seconds. Again, 15% is not really the biggest increase. I don't think that's really relevant. And a maximum energy increase doesn't seem that good either, right? Like, that means you theoretically get a damage boost of up to you're going to hit 5 enemy heroes, so that's a 50% energy increase. So that's a damage boost of 100%. Like, granted, that's really big, but you're not always going to hit 5 heroes. You're usually going to hit 1 or 2. So it's a much smaller actual damage increase. It only lasts for 10 seconds, and it's apparently just maximum energy. So if you're not already at 100 and adding damage, you're not even going to get to benefit. So I don't really like Clear Out. That feels sort of weak to me. I maybe need to see it in action, but I still think Graviton Surge is a vastly superior heroic, so it's unlikely you're going to have Expulsion Zone in the first place, and if you do, I can't imagine taking this upgrade to it. There's also the Grenadier, Grenadier, I don't know. Never knew how to pronounce this one. Grenadier. Anyway, all particle grenade charges are returned at once. Oh, whoa. So I think that means let's go ahead and take this. As soon as one charge fills, and you can see your charge bar there, you're going to get all of them back, right? Yeah. So if you spam all 4, it's actually kind of crazy how quickly these come back. You just basically spam forever. I don't know, I still don't think Q's good enough, though. Maybe if you buff it up through other talents and finally get here, it's like, oh, I got a cool ability, but by then you've suffered for 20 levels, you've impacted your team's chances negatively for 20 levels, so I don't know that this is enough payoff to make that suffering for that long worth it. It's just not hot on Q. Maybe I'm going to be proven wrong. I hope so. I want Zarya to be good, and I certainly want all of her abilities to be good, so I hope I'm wrong about this particle grenade. But so far, I don't really like this choice. And then finally, there's the Unyielding Defender. 45-second cooldown active talent. This activates to reset the cooldown of Personal Barrier and Shield Ally. So those have 12-second cooldowns. You can cast both. Pop Unyielding Defender, cast both. You know, that's probably a second or 2 turnaround time. So you'd get 2,400 plus another 1,800. You'd get, like, what is that? 4K, 4,000 healing basically out in 2 seconds, like burst healing, and then you'd have it again in 12 seconds. So in 12, maybe 14-second period, you could do roughly 6K in healing. Or shielding. It's good. It's good, but it's going to require a lot of skill, basically, a lot of good timing, a lot of foresight. It's going to have the right situation because you want your shields to be burned through before you pop this and cast them again. So it's going to be a very quick, decisive action required to make this good. And although some people might certainly get some value out of that, I think Gravity Kills is probably still the safer choice for most people. It's just more reliable, easier to pull off. Still has a big impact. Not the strongest level 20 talent I've ever seen, granted. But I think I'll be choosing Gravity Kills, although I could certainly see really good players, better players than me, utilizing Unyielding Defender really well. So that said, I think if I'm doing a build, I've kind of already forgotten some of these older ones. Oops, I want to reset talents, not do that. I think we liked Together We Are Strong. And I think we liked defensive shielding. I think I liked... which one did I like here? I think hit me? No. Pinpoint accuracy? No. To the limit? No. I think I liked hit me. But I don't remember. Go back and watch the video for which talent I liked best here. I can't remember. We like Crouch on Surge a lot. Here, I think I like Unstoppable Competitor. Here, I like Cleansing Shield. These are both sort of movement-based options, so it's adding some extra utility to your kit, which is always nice. And then finally, Gravity Kills for the upgrade to Crouch on Surge. So, I'm not sure about my level 7. This one, they're all kind of damage-based. I wasn't too excited about any of them, but again, go back and listen to my comments. I'm sure 15 minutes ago, Regis was much more insightful than current Regis. So this is, some sort of starter build. Again, I haven't played Zarya at all in the game, so I have no idea how this works. Might be terrible, but if you're looking for a way to jump into some games and have some talents to go by, these seem like the best way to start to me. But of course, always use your own judgment and see what's working for you and what seems to have an impact in games and go for that. So all that said, I think that's going to do it for my first impressions of Zarya. Cool kit, interesting. I'm glad to see another Overwatch hero. The biggest thing about this hero is just a ranged warrior and how that matters and how good her auto attack is. It feels like it's going to be awkward to me, but need to see her in action to really know. But still adding something new and different to the game, which is in and of itself really important. Even if she's not great from a numbers standpoint, that can always be tuned. But from a playstyle or strategy standpoint, it's good to see something new and different. So I'm excited to have Zarya in the Nexus. All that said, if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, etc., you know where to leave them. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.